And it is time for the hot topic of the hour, Hurricane Idalia leaving a path of destruction. But President Biden took the opportunity to address climate change, saying that the climate crisis is, quote, undeniable now after this. Watch.
I'm ready to mobilize that support of what they need. I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around. Historic floods, more intense droughts, extreme heat, significant wildfires have caused significant damage like we've never seen before, not only throughout the Hawaiian Islands in the United States, but in Canada and other parts of the world. We've never seen this much fire.
Yeah, the president's comment comes moments after the FEMA director declined to blame the storm on climate change at all. Kaylee, your reaction?
Well, the climate crisis is, in fact, deniable. I mean, even a lot of scientists disagree with the Democratic talking points that, you know, carbon, man-made pollution is the reason for all these natural disasters. But of course, the scientists who point that out are immediately censored by people like Biden. But this reminds me of, you know, the famous Democratic talking point, which is that you never let a crisis go to waste. They are using this to continue pushing Biden's green energy agenda onto the working Americans who don't want it. And they will use natural disasters in order to push that agenda.
It's pretty extraordinary. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy questioned President Biden's, quote, robust response to the storm as well. Watch this.
It seems like the hurricane response so far is robust. Did you guys realize that the initial Hawaii wildfire response was not that good? Or is it just easier for people to get help from the White House when the president is not on vacation?
The premise of your question and the way you pose your question, I disagree. If you were to do your reporting and speak to the governor of Hawaii, the senators of Hawaii, the folks on the ground, they would say that the president reacted in record time when it came to dealing with the wildfires. Let's not forget there were more than 600 federal employees on the ground already to assist with the wildfires in Maui. So your question is wrong. It's flawed in many, many ways.
Yeah, the question was not wrong, Krisha. Initially, President Biden responded with no comment.
The question is certainly not wrong because Joe Biden never misses an opportunity also to talk about his own house fire and the crises that he's faced at home. It's very convenient that he was not on vacation during the hurricane at this particular moment, because who knows where he would have been and come out with, you know, additional commentary about himself, because he always makes it about himself. A national crisis, he turns inward. So it's not wrong, because we saw even the response with East Palestine. He is yet to go there, and Maui, he was taking 2 vacations before he surveyed the damage. And in this case, we see again Karine Jean-Pierre is gaslighting the American public. Peter Doocy has every right to ask that question, because we don't have faith in Joe Biden at this particular moment to answer the call when there's a national security crisis.
Well, it's a great point, because initially I think he was worried about his own situation because he brought up his car again.
Yes, Corvette, his cat.
Let's run that soundbite. Watch, here it is.
We have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette. You guys catch the boots out here? That's a hot ground, man.
That was on August 21st. How many people were dead at that point? He's talking about his Corvette.
Probably confirmed at least 100 at that point, and now there's, what, 1,100 missing?
That's
and
right.
You can only assume, unfortunately, the worst. But look, I mean, we've talked about his stories. They're super unrelatable, very disingenuous, very insulting.
Are they true? I don't know.
Who knows? I mean, he could be making this stuff up. But, you know, I want to talk quickly about KJP's comment that he responded to the Maui wildfire or fire in record time.
Right.
All you have to do is watch the video of the people of Maui, quote unquote, welcoming him. It was not a warm welcome at all. And so you can tell how they feel about when he showed up, how he showed up, and I don't think they like him very much.
But she takes this time to say your question is wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and the way you phrased the question. We all watched what has happened. He's talking about his Corvette. Jill and I know what it's like to lose a home. No, you don't.
Yeah, so the next time a prospective client asks me a question, I'm going to tell them their question has no merit, and I'm sure they'll do business with me, right? That'll be incredibly well received.